everybody. Thanks for tuning into Border City Rock Talk. You get great news, great interviews, great interviewees with sometimes a comedic touch. Make sure you smash the subscribe button, hit the like button, and comment below. Today I've got, for the third time, I'm very lucky to have legendary guitarist from Triumph, Rick Emmett. How you doing, my friend?
I'm good, Ernest. How are you, buddy?
Not too bad. Actually, you see that smile on your face, and it just dawned on me, actually, the other day. I was going to ask you, um, I'm starting to be one of these people that bring people together. Remember Damian Johnson?
Refresh my memory.
Well, I interviewed him. He's playing in Leonard Skinner now, and he almost broke down in an interview talking about
Oh,
how you wrote him. He wrote you a letter about 30 years ago. He
yeah.
got home from school, and he had an envelope, and it was open, and you'd handwritten him a reply, and he was so darn grateful. He almost broke down on because it was like a memorable moment. And then I think I put you in touch with him. Did you ever chat with him?
I did. Yes, yes. And you know, the funny thing about this is we live in this age now where, everything's digital and people are constantly being able to be in touch because they can send emails and texts and, we can do these things and we can look at each other over our
Yeah.
phone, blah, blah, blah. But it's amazing how the things that I did back in the day where you just sit down and you write somebody a letter, it has such a deep meaning to people and it stays with them their whole lives. I think now these kinds of fleeting things that we have, they don't have any sort of lasting value that
Yeah.
goes deep. But man, you sit down and you write somebody a letter and it's a profound kind of a thing. And so no wonder the Victorians were also, effusive and emotional all the time because they were constantly writing each other letters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing is it's unique too because you know Rose Tattoo of Australia. You've heard of Rose Tattoo.
Yes.
I'd interviewed Angry about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and he had a handwritten letter that he pulled out from his boxes from previous management, and it was from a Canadian that lived in Ganoke, Ontario, and she was writing a letter for her dad to get an interview or an autograph, and he just saw it. He was emotional, and he'd asked me if I can help try to track her down 30 years later. So I sent a few requests with the Information Bureau in Ganoke, but I mean, these things like you guys, when you were doing your thing, you don't realize the impact you have on people's lives.
Well, I think I did actually, honestly and truthfully. I think, well, certainly I had a sense of it, even more than the other guys in the band, because I would do things like when I would go away on a summer holiday, I would take a stack of letters with me from the post office box from the fan club. And the guys in the band would say, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'll answer these folks. I'll do handwritten things on my stationery." And they went like, "Are you nuts? What are you doing?" But I think, 40, 50 years later, these things are happening like fan fests and, Triumph documentaries where, the folks are coming and they come from Brazil and they come from England and they come from all across the United States. And, to this little Canadian band that was out of Mississauga, and it was like, I think I knew that I was at least seeding or watering a seed that could, it would grow, it would live, and I think I had a sense of it.
Wow. And you have some shows coming up, not with Triumph, but tell us about the shows coming up that you're doing in the next little bit.
I got a thing on March 21st in Collingwood with a pal of mine named Brent Jensen, who's a podcaster like you. And he's kind of grown his thing to the point where now maybe he does little live shows and he gets an audience and people buy tickets. And then it's like, oh, a Q&A, intimate and interactive with Rick Emmett. So, I'll play a little, sing a little, he and I have a good time when we get together. And then on April 10 and 11, I'm doing two shows. They're already sold out at the Redwood Theater in Toronto, which is a small place, but it's a nice place. Recently renovated, nice PA, nice stage, 175 seats, so an intimate place. But I'm going to play all of my 10 Telecaster Tales music live in one set, and then have an intermission, and then come back and play a couple more things, and then get my pal Dave Dunlop that I used to tour with a lot, and we'll get up and play some of the old Triumph songs and guitar pieces and things. And yeah, if I survive that, it'll be a miracle. But yeah. And then after all that's said and done, my wife and I are going to go to Paris for 5 days, and then we're going to go on up to Amsterdam, climb on a river cruise with three other couples that are friends of ours, and we're going to go all the way from Amsterdam down to Basel, Switzerland, and
Wow.
uh, and so I'm going to spend, a nice month of the springtime over there in Europe, and then I'm going to come home and reassess my life, Ernest. I'm going to decide where I'm going to go from there.
Where you're going next.
Yeah.
Um, we'll talk about 10 Telecaster Tales in a second. So, Follow Your Heart, Spellbound are two of the most popular, in my opinion, Triumph songs that you're known for worldwide. If can you just give us a breakdown of how you wrote Follow Your Heart, the opening riff and the chord progression?
Yeah, I can, and even though you can't hear the guitar on well, because of our Zoom connection, I will show you that the first voicing was like it was here. That's what it looked like. So
Yeah.
seventh fret, I was playing an E bass, so you get an octave of the open E with an E, an octave up, and then I was playing two notes of a B chord. So it was like a B over E to start it. If you can't hear that, then
Yeah,
I
I'll dub something in, some
well, it
audio.
was like this. It was like na 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 na, and then the open A string. Um, na 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 na, and the last chords were like an E over B low. So that was like this chord. So we
Okay,
had
yeah.
da 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 A da again, same chord, B chord, just two notes of,
Yep.
and this open E B string. They just ring all the time through it.
Yeah.
It's
It's
funny
like
you asked me about this because one time we had Helix opening shows in Canada and Follow Your Heart was a hit at the time. And the
oh yeah,
guitar
I love
player
that
from
song.
Helix came to me and he said, Rick, what are those crazy chords you're playing? I go, they're not that crazy. They're just little kind of dyads of chords over top of other bass notes.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
to him, it was like they weren't power chords. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I found the original tablature for it. So it's just that. Actually, I'm going to ask you about this. So we're here primarily to talk about 10 Telecaster Tales, Rick's latest book on ECW books. Thanks, Claire Pekorchak, for setting this up. Tell everybody about the book, Rick.
Well, it started out with this guitar. I was designing this guitar um, with a friend of mine, Mike Smith, Mike Smitty Smith of MJS Pickups. And then we got a guy, Garen DeCassian in Oakville, to be our luthier to build it to our specs. And at the same time, I was writing pieces. And then I thought, yeah, it might be cool if I was able to play all of these guitar pieces just on the Telecaster. And I was going through a bunch of stuff where I got a commission to write. I had to rewrite a bourrée in a dance thing in a movie and in a documentary film. And that got me thinking about dance suite stuff. And so I was writing little guitar pieces. And when we were watching Yellowstone on TV, my wife and I, we were
Oh yeah.
binging it. And so I was thinking about sort of Appalachian, rootsy Americana kind of. And I was writing these guitar pieces. And so eventually I had these 10 pieces, and then I thought, okay, what our house was being renovated. And so this location that I'm sitting in here, this is Eli's loft. This is the studio. And this big space around me was being built as a reno on the back of our house. So that got finished. I moved back in here and I thought, I am going to record this thing here in my new studio. And I got my pal Blair Packham to come to engineer so that I wouldn't have to, click mouses and play engineer. And so that's what I did. And then at the same time, of course, I've had this ongoing deal with ECW Press. I've written a book of poetry. I've
Yep.
written a memoir. And
Yep.
my editor is a guy named Michael Holmes, and he's a guitar player himself. And so I pitched him and said, Michael, I'm thinking of liner notes for these guitar things that I'm recording. I think it can actually turn into a book. Like
Yeah.
I'm getting so comprehensive in the depth
Right.
of things. And I said, so what do you think? If I got a couple of hundred pages, he went, man, I'm in. Let's go. Let's do it. So
Yeah.
then I said to him, and this is sort of a bucket list thing for me. I was thinking, wouldn't it be great if I had a hardcover, like leather bound edition of the book, and the CD was right in the back? And so I said to him, if we're going to get our money back on printing these things up, we should do a short run and we'll have to charge like $150 a throw. But how about we do it as a hardcover deluxe edition, and then we just have the paperback, and then people can get the music as download. So that was the plan,
It's
and it turned
amazing.
out like a charm.
Well, it's kind of funny you bring that up because my apartment's being renovated and I'm actually in Jerry's apartment right now. So if you see Kramer coming in the back and in my fridge, let me know because that bugger, I'm telling you, he's not putting any money in that tip jar. But remember that book, that episode where he had a coffee table book and the book turned into a coffee table? He was on what was that show? That show the Kathy Lee Gifford and
Kathy Lee, yeah, the Kathy and Regis, yeah.
we just, yeah, the book turned into a coffee table. So your book actually has the CD in it, the hardcover.
Well, there was a very limited edition of those, and
Okay.
I think they might be even sold out now. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So, most folks are going to have to settle for the paperback. In any case, it was a lot of dough, but yeah, so paperback and downloads from bandcamp.com. So you can go to Rick Emmett, .bandcamp.com or
Yeah.
Rick /bandcamp.com, and you can get the tunes from there. Yeah.
So in a nutshell though, what is the like for the person that's wondering what you're talking about with the book? The book is about the writing process for these tunes.
Yes and no. That's part two. Part one is more like I go, okay, history of the Fender Telecaster. Why
Okay,
it's
yeah, yeah,
guitar
that's right.
important.
Yeah.
Uh, why did I design this new guitar, and what
Okay.
entailed in all of that,
What's
and then
different about it?
more about just what is it about creative process that matters, and the roots of Rick Emmett. Growing up in West Toronto, and all these guys like Dominic Troiano and Robbie Robertson that were playing Telecasters, and going to play with Bob Dylan and then getting him to play Telecasters, and all of that kind of stuff that was a part and parcel of me being a teenager growing up and going, yeah, Telecasters.
So what is the difference for say the layperson from a Stratocaster to a Telecaster? Just
Telecasters are more primeval. Like they were it was the first electric solid body guitar that really became popular.
okay.
And they're clean and they're snappy, and they're kind of the guitar that was at the beginnings of blues and R&B and country in the States. And so then the Strat came along a little bit later, and yes, then that became the guitar. Ooh, Hank Marvin in the Shadows was playing one, and Buddy Holly was playing one, and so now the Strat was like everybody wanted Strats. And of course over time, because Hendrix played one and now Clapton plays one, and it was sort of the guitar that Mark Knopfler used, as a Sultan of Swing and all of that stuff. The Strat kind of became more widespread.
Yeah.
Was a much more versatile guitar in certain ways. But the Tele always had this thing of like a primacy that
Yes.
existed, and an honesty and an integrity to it. And the first good guitar I ever bought was a Tele, and I was playing
Oh,
in Jewish wedding bands and bar mitzvah bands, and I had a little Fender amp and I had a Fender Telecaster, and it was a perfectly good guitar. I could have just played it all the rest of my life,
right.
except for the fact that guitar players have this crazy disease where we keep chasing the Holy
We
Grail.
we
You know,
keep collecting things.
yeah, yeah, it's a problem.
Well, this is the book, everybody. Go out and get it. I'll put links below. Can you see that clearly, Rick?
Yeah, hold it back a little further, just towards your face. That's not helping either. The top of it's gone. Yeah, there
Okay.
you go. There it is. Yeah, and
So, anyways, we're speaking about Victorians, and obviously, you've probably been to the Middle East. Have you seen the pyramids at Giza?
I have seen them in pictures, but I've never seen them in real life.
Well, I
No.
was just wondering, where you came up with the hieroglyphics.
Yeah, hieroglyphics. Yes.
Hieroglyphics. Yeah, I looked at this and I'm like, actually, this isn't even the most detailed one. I think there's another one that's I'm like, is it Braille? What is that? I mean, but
Yeah.
I looked.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I was reticent to put them in the book. I was, yeah, I was a little shy and afraid that when people did see the way that I actually transcribe my ideas onto paper so that I can remember them and start to memorize them,
Oh, okay.
That's what they look like. And it's not like regular musical notation, it's the scribblings of a madman. And I showed them to Michael Holmes, my editor, and I said, Michael, these are my charts. This is the way I do things. I, I'm I'm shy to show these to the world, but I think they might have some value in the book. And he said, absolutely, they do. They've got to be in the book. They're amazing. They're fantastic. You know, they kiss your ass, editors. That's what they do. And they pat you on the back so that your head swells up.
Yeah.
So, and so I bought in, and that's what that stuff is. But, it's just the way I've always worked, a pencil and a piece of paper. And how am I going to remember this? Just write the notes.
So you'd be like in a hotel room somewhere, when you're touring with Triumph, and you might have a guitar, you might not, but you have a melody in your head, and you're going to write down A minor, E minor, and then you'll go from there. That's kind of the way it is. It's kind of like Jerry. Like I'm in his apartment right now. He's out for the day, but he would write his notes in hotel rooms. And remember that one episode where that cleaning lady threw out his joke?
Yes.
I've got a memory for everything Seinfeld, man.
You know what? Like, you should talk to my pal Dave Dunlop sometimes because he was also a Seinfeld. He had every episode memorized,
Oh, I do now.
and the guys in the band, the guys that I would hire, they would often sit around and tell the same kinds of stories. They remember the episode where blah blah blah. But that Dave and Steve Skingley, my bass player, they would also talk about WKRP in Cincinnati. Same thing. They knew every episode. Yeah.
Sorry,
Oh,
private number.
yeah.
Telemarketing. It's okay.
Yeah. So that they would be something would happen on the road, and they would look at each other and they would say like, "I swear to God, I thought turkeys could fly." You know,
Yeah, yeah,
that kind of
yeah.
stuff. There would
I
be a
love
line.
I love the intro. More music and less Nessman.
Yeah, exactly.
You ever watch The Office? Speaking of which?
A little bit, like I've watched both a little bit of the British and a little, but I'm not the kind of guy that sits down and absorbs an entire series of something because I just don't
I
have time.
I totally hated Seinfeld for the first couple years, and I would only hear things here and there, and then I got into it. You watching Yellowstone now? I haven't watched it. Is it
No,
worth
no,
it?
that we're talking years ago now, like three
Oh,
years ago, 4 years ago, and we binged the whole thing. And I have not seen the latest seasons.
oh,
No,
I haven't
but
seen the first.
we also binged. What was it, 1923, and whatever the other one was, because there was two prequels that he made. That guy
Oh,
Taylor Sheridan, he so we saw those, but I haven't seen the latest seasons.
well, I'm gonna check them out if they're worth it. So, I mean, I've got time.
Yeah, okay, good.
Okay. Well, I don't want to take much more of your time. I'm getting ready to go see my granddaughter. I'm so stoked about that. Everybody check out the book. This no.
There it is, beautiful.
10 Telecaster Tales by Rick Emmett, liner notes for guitar and its music by ECW Press. I'll put the links below. I'll put Rick's website below. So if you want to go see him playing, if he adds any more shows to his before he goes and leaves our country for a month. Hopefully, when you get back, things will be better. Jesus.
Yeah, well, what will be, and
Yeah.
all we've got to do is figure out how to adjust. That's the bottom line. Like, I've got a book of poetry coming out at the end of this year, and it's called Leaning Into It. And I wrote it during COVID and during Trump's first,
Oh wow.
run in office. And when ECW was slating it for publication, I thought, man, it may be irrelevant. It may, there won't be any currency to the stuff because it's kind of old. And then
Yeah.
Trump gets reelected, and then the feces hits the fan all over again. And I go, no, these poems are going to be, they're going to be good.
Currency.
And
That's
the
a good
book is
one.
called Leaning Into It,
That's great.
and that's kind of what you got to do. Like, you just
Yeah.
got to figure out how to lean into it, man.
I like how you're able to do this on the cuff, like currency. We were talking tariffs and you bring in currency into your words. Hey man, thanks so much for your time. The opposite of unsubscribe would be
Subscribe, hit the button, folks.
everybody hit this button, and I'm going to talk to Rick again when he releases that next book of poetry. Thanks so much for your time. You're always gracious, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Ernest. Bye bye.
Bye.